Participants. Yep. So you're all.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Great to see you or not see you. Hi, and welcome. My name is Robin Rubin. I'm with the Phyllis and Harvey Sandler School of Social Work at Florida Atlantic University. Before we get started, I wanted to briefly introduce the Robin Rubin Center for Happiness and Life Enhancement for those who might be joining us for the first time. The Robin Rubin Center is housed in the Sandler School of Social Work within the College of Social Work and Criminal Justice here at FAU. The center offers weekly wellness programming free of charge. Students, faculty, staff, friends, family, everyone's welcomed and encouraged to attend all of our events, including meditations every Friday at noon on Zoom, yoga on the second and fourth Mondays of each month, starting in January again, and special monthly workshops like this one. It's never been more important to nurture our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. We are firm believers that it all starts with giving yourself permission to show up and step forward. So for any first timers in the audience today, welcome. And to everyone here, thank you for showing up for yourself today.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Marshallie Adam, and it is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Crystal Ann England. A friend of mine, Dr. Crystal Ann England, is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been in the field for 16 years. She believes that her clients have the answer to all their questions they seek. It is her life's work to help each client discover personal truth and begin to live the life they desire with intention. She specializes in working with women and couples. Dr. England utilizes meditation, visualization, family of origin, and humanistic techniques in therapy and believes that growth and evolution are an active process that requires her clients to go beyond the therapy room. Dr. England, thank you for being here. Please take it away.
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Adam. My pleasure to be here. So, good night to everyone. And I wanted to start by just saying that the more participation, the better. And something that I think that is really important in any presentation is the more that you guys are able to really take in what I'm saying and try to conceptualize it in a way that it makes sense to your life and your experiences, the more meaningful this will be for you and for me. So, as you hear me talking, if certain things start to resonate with you, please don't hesitate when I ask questions to jump in. And again, allowing it to kind of come through your sifter of like your own life and trying to make sense of it from your own life experiences. So tonight, our or my presentation is on healing to halt the pattern. So what do we say every year during this time, right? It is just December now. We say, okay, we're getting ready for our New Year's resolutions, right? How many of us say that every year, New Year's resolution, we're preparing. And as we reflect on the past year and we prepare for the new year coming forward, we think about oftentimes maybe some of the mistakes that we made, um, maybe some of the things we wish we would have done differently, or maybe even reflecting on wonderful, amazing things and opportunities that we had, and how we want to carry more of those things into the next year. So this is really a time of reflection. Um, and there's no better time to start thinking about the person that you are trying to become. Um, because as you guys all know, there is no such thing as like arriving, right? We never get to, how can I say, actualization is never something that you arrive at and then like you're there for the rest of your life. It's always something that you are always arriving. You are always getting there. You're always in the midst of that journey. And so, at the end of a old year and the beginning of a new year, we look to the future thinking about who is this person that we want to be. Thank you, Dr. Adam. Can you change it, please? Next slide. All right, so when we think about halting a pattern, what are we talking about, right? We're talking about actively addressing and working through deeply ingrained negative emotional or behavioral patterns in order to stop them from reoccurring in our lives. So I'm going to play a video for you guys really quick, and then we will go on and have a little bit of a discussion. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute. 1 second. Okay, can you guys see that? Okay, perfect.
Character is the core of a person, something they can't control, something that comes from deep within, and it causes people to have patterns of behavior. And you want to find people who have a strong character to associate with as opposed to a weak character. And what a strong character is people who are adaptable, who are fluid, who can admit that they are wrong, who can learn from their experience, who can take criticism, who can work with other people. So I want you to focus not on people's charming exterior, on their funny words, on their wit, on their charisma. Instead, focus on that deep inner quality, that core, that character, because that's who they really are. Your character is creating what happens to you in life. There's the famous quote of the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus, "Character is fate."
So in going forward with that, character is fate. When you think about your character and the person that you are in this moment, reflecting on the past year, is there anyone who wants to share maybe where they're at in terms of their character and maybe some things that they would like to perhaps work on, or maybe even shift a little bit or refine? Anybody want to share like a behavior that maybe they're working on trying to refine or do away with? If not, I can share one of mine. Let me see, is it? Okay, so for example, for me, something that I am really working on that I think over this past year is owning my stuff. So whenever I am in a situation where, maybe I said something that was hurtful to a loved one, or I made a mistake with my kids even, um, something that I am really, really working on is owning it. And sometimes we think like when I say own it, the thing for me, for example, that I'm really trying to hone in on is when I say I'm sorry, is not I'm sorry and, or I'm sorry but, right? So if I do something wrong or I make a mistake, I say I'm sorry. Period. Full stop. Um, Anyone else have any, things that they're currently working on that they want to share that's been kind of a struggle for them in the past year? Any reoccurring behavioral patterns or negative emotional patterns?
I think that just being in the social work profession, we sometimes pour from empty cups or half full cups. So I think that just being more intentional as professionals, because it's required for our code of ethics, but just being more intentional, using resources like the Robin Rubin Center, getting our cup more full. So I think this year, for the upcoming year, just really working on pouring, pouring from a fuller cup than just drying up my cup.
Yes, love that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Adam. Anybody else want to share, a behavioral pattern or emotional pattern that they're working on trying to be better in a specific area anywhere?
I'll share just
Sure.
the idea of really not judging and just being less judgmental, not jumping to that place of judgment when somebody does something, and trying to just be more, I think, compassionate about, we just don't know what anybody's going through, and just being more compassionate and less judgmental.
And that one is so hard. It's so hard. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, for sure. All right, next slide, please, Dr. Adam. So as we are moving forward, oftentimes when we think about these negative emotional patterns or these negative behavior patterns, it's really important, first of all, to know where do they stem from, right? And there's so many different, I just named a few, but there's even more than this, places where these negative behavior patterns or emotional patterns can start. But oftentimes I find that they start in these core 5 places. And even some of these things can be consolidated, right? When we think about early childhood experiences, cognitive distortions, stress and emotional strain, social and environmental factors, and unmet needs. If you actually think about it, all of these things can be condensed into our early childhood experiences and the very things that we learn early on in life. And this is going to be important as we move forward. So try to stay with me here and keep this in your mind. Next one, please, Dr. Adam. So breaking the cycles or healing the patterns, how do we even go about doing that, right? Oftentimes we might hear a friend say, oh, wow, that was really hurtful. When you behave this way, this is really hurtful. Or we might hear our partner say, hey, when you behave this way, this is really hurtful. But how many of us actually take what our partners and our friends say and like actually put that into change? Very, very seldom. It's not until we hear maybe a third party who has no investment in us being well or not well that we say, oh, wait, maybe there's some merit there, right? And that oftentimes is like something like therapy, because through therapy or through, I know you guys have counseling on.
Working?
Sorry?
Oh, you finish? It's bad. So bad.
So he's moving okay.
Man.
Sorry, say that again.
I think someone was just unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. So, having intentional regulation, building supportive relationships through encouragement that encourage growth and continuous intentional maintenance. These are all the ways in which we can break the cycles and start to heal ourselves from these negative patterns. Dr. Adam, please. So sorry, guys, hold on. I moved into a new place and the walls are very thin here. So my kids are a little bit loud, forgive me. All right, so let's talk about triggers now. I'm going to show you guys another video. And this one specifically is about triggers. Okay, one second, here we go. I'm going to share this with you guys. Are you guys there?
We're here.
Okay, sorry. If for a second there I lost you. I don't know where it went. So sorry. Okay, so here we go. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on here. I can't even see my screen. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. I'm going to share with you now. There we go. Hold on. There we go.
So whenever someone triggers you, what they're actually doing is inviting you into a deeper part of yourself that you haven't healed yet, right? Once you start to do the trauma work and the therapy work and heal your heart, you start to realize that your triggers are just pointing to your traumas. That whenever you're triggered and you react out of a space of not healed, then you are giving people your power. You're giving people your peace. You're giving people your freedom. And you start to do the work and you go, wow, this has nothing to do with what they said to me and everything to do with how I felt and how I responded and reacted. And so when you start to heal your heart, you start to actually, when someone triggers you, you look at that as a gift, an invitation to be like, dang, looks like I still have some work to do. Looks like I still have some things to reflect on. And as you heal, you start to still get triggered every once in a while, but you learn to regulate your nervous system. You learn to regulate and center into your truth of like, oh, wow, that one felt a certain way. That one made me feel a certain way, but I'm not going to react like they want me to react, right? I'm not going to respond how they want me to respond. I'm going to go inward and figure out like, how is this affecting me and why did it affect me? And that is the whole journey of healing and your triggers and your traumas and understanding that everything is a gift and everything is inviting you deeper into self-love and self-reflection so that you can love them and love everyone around you. I love you guys. Peace.
That is like one of my favorite videos, because so often when we hear about triggers, it's almost as if the person who is triggering us is responsible for what's happening, right? Like, how dare you trigger me? When the truth be told, if we're being quite honest, our triggers have nothing to do with anybody else. Like, it belongs to us, right? It's ours. And oftentimes over time, if you're in a relationship, like your husband might know what your triggers are, or even, especially, I see this all too often, our mothers know very much which buttons to press to trigger us, right? But a lot of times we blame the other person, but that's really not their responsibility to not trigger us. It's our responsibility to take that as an opportunity to say, okay, so if I'm still triggered by these behaviors from my mother, that this is actually an opportunity for me to work on myself in this particular area. So for example, can anybody think of maybe how someone in their family, for example, their mom, triggers them? Can anyone think of an example of something that someone that you love does that like just triggers you?
I can share.
Okay, sure.
It is my mom. For some reason, when my mom gets in my car and she says anything about my car, like, oh, like it sounds like your brakes aren't good, or like, or something about that really gets me upset. And I know that it comes from like I started taking care of myself really early, like 18. My mom moved to New York and she was with my stepdad and my younger brother, and me and my sister figured it out. And I think it's just the fact that like I don't get like I didn't get that help that, like, let's say maybe one of my friends did if they were more privileged than I was. So for me, I'd rather her just be quiet.
Yeah, you don't get to have a say here because you
Right.
didn't contribute. Yeah,
Right. Like I
right.
bought that car on my own, you know? So like, yeah.
So how dare you talk
I
about
know,
this part
yeah.
that you did not contribute to
Like it makes me
helping?
very upset. It makes me very upset.
Yes, but see, right, this is such a beautiful opportunity, because then you get to look at this and say, so I know that I feel triggered when people who did not contribute want to then somehow criticize the all the hard work or all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into me maybe having this particular thing, right? Like, she doesn't know how hard you had
Mhm.
to work to even get that car, right? But then moving forward, you can pay attention to that. So when someone else, for example, let's say, I don't know, later on a boss sees a presentation you do and he doesn't know all the sacrifices you had to make that night to make that presentation even possible for him to then criticize it, you'll be able to recognize, oh wait, this isn't even
Yeah.
us, right? This
Hmm.
is about me. This is touching that little spot that's
Hmm.
still very sore, that kind of happens and started maybe with mom,
Yeah.
right? And so, but so I love that you're aware of that and that you and your sister have had conversations about that, because then moving forward, awareness is important, but let's be honest here. Awareness does not actually lead to any sustainable change, right? So the changing part, the part that actually is in charge of whether or not we continue to be triggered, is the part of what do we do when we feel that, right? So the next time mom comes in your car or anything of that nature where you feel like there's some criticism for something that you had to work really hard for, that maybe that person did not contribute for or to, you can be thinking of how how can you handle that in a different way and not allow yourself to be emotionally engaged in such a manner that you're heightened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because it's just a car.
But not no, but I don't, you see, but even that, I don't know that I want you to negate it in that way, because it is just a car and you worked really hard to get that. So maybe instead of it's just a car, maybe it's reminding yourself, I worked really damn hard to get this
Yeah,
car.
to
And
get this.
can't
You're right.
nobody tell me
And it
anything.
gets me from point A to point B.
Yes, and
Does.
maybe even saying, like, while mom is there, and saying, "Thank you, Betty. I love you, Betty." You, or whatever it
Yeah.
is that you
Yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
right? I appreciate you. Have I told you that I appreciate you lately, Bet? Right? So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are affirming to yourself, regardless of what mom is saying. I appreciate, I recognize the hard work that I had to put in to get this thing, and it doesn't matter what you say.
Mhm.
I can have my feelings about it.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dr. Ann, could you change, please? All right, so we kind of were talking about all of these things, so you guys already know, right, that a trigger is a person, place, or thing or situation that elicits an intense or unexpected emotional response, and that it's your responsibility. And yes, okay, other people might trigger us, but the real takeaway is we get to decide what we do with those triggers and how we want to take back our power in those moments. Because what it really comes down to is, if we allow other people to constantly trigger us, then we become a light switch that someone can just turn on and off. We have no emotional regulation. We are just at the helm of anyone who comes by and presses that sore spot, then we react, right? So it's falling in the void a little bit, thinking about what's happening, processing that somatic response. And by that, I mean, like, what's happening in your body when mom says these things, and then allowing yourself to have a different reaction than what you would normally have. Next slide, please, Doctor. Thank you. So oftentimes people think, well, if I could just avoid the trigger altogether, maybe that's the best thing, right? Like, so for example, maybe if I just go no contact with my mom, because every time I'm around my mom, I feel so much distress. And I can't seem to regulate myself. Like, I'm always angry. I'm super frustrated. So maybe if I just like cut off from my mom, or I go no contact, that I'll stop being triggered in the way that I am. And the thing that I will tell you guys is, you will find your mother in somebody else's face. She will show up in someone else, right? You, whether it be an auntie, whether it be a coworker, whether it be a boss, because the truth is, the universe has this wonderful, amazing sense of humor that it will require us to work on the very things that we keep trying to avoid. So the more you avoid your triggers, the more they will find you, until you figure out what you need to do in order to not allow other people and their behavior to, I guess there's no other way to really say it than like dysregulate your system. Next slide, please, Dr. Adam. Okay, so this is the one we already watched. We can skip past this one. So, but I wanted to talk to you guys about something before we move on. Oftentimes clients will ask me, like, Dr. England, what do you do when you feel like the triggers just keep coming? And people, how many times have you guys heard people say, oh, you got to feel your feels, feel your feelings? Has anybody ever heard of that? People say that to you. And it's like, okay, what does that even mean? What does it mean to like feel your feels? Right. And I'm going to call you guys out here for a minute, but oftentimes people in academia are well known to be intellectualizers, right? And by that, I mean, when there are things that are really hard emotionally, oftentimes people who are very intelligent will find ways to, like, they know what their triggers are, they know, they're well aware and they're self-aware of different emotional aspects of their life and things that they might need to work on or things they need to continue to work through. But the problem is, the problem never fully goes away, which is why I was saying earlier, awareness is not enough. So what do we do with people like that, right? I'm going to share a clip with you guys. Hold on one second. I'm going to share it here. And forgive this lady. She's awesome, but she does curse a little bit. So just bear with me for a minute here.
Telling people who over-intellectualize that they just need to feel their feelings to heal from their trauma is not effective. It's like telling people with anxiety that they just need to calm down. For a lot of us, we're not even like consciously trying to avoid our feelings. For a lot of us, even when we try to feel those feelings and channel that, nothing comes up. So the whole just feel your feelings rhetoric, like it's not fucking helpful. What was helpful to me was realizing and accepting that this whole analytical side of me is a critical part of my process. What was helpful was realizing how trauma works in our body and how it works to disconnect us from our bodies for a reason. Because those feelings that we felt when that trauma was happening, those are big, unsafe feelings. So it blocks us from being able to tap into those things. It was helpful because it allowed me to come up with a strategy for feeling safe enough in my body to feel my feelings. Another thing that was helpful was realizing that I didn't just have to feel within my body. I could also communicate with my body. Your body, it's almost like it has a second brain. It will literally listen to you. If you ask it like, why won't you let me feel? It'll answer you. I've asked my body that before, and the immediate thought up in my head was, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's too big. What if we lose our shit? And then out of respect for my body, I can say, all right, well, that's valid. If it's too big, I believe you. Maybe we can come up with a way to take baby steps. Maybe we can come up with a game plan for what we will do if the feelings do get too big. Maybe we can ask someone for support to check in on us in an hour because we're going to sit down and try to feel our fucking feelings right now. Revisiting those big feelings that we felt when terrible shit happened to us is not going to feel safe to a lot of us. We're not able to just like tap in and do that shit. So while I'm really happy that so many people are learning how to just like feel your feelings and kind of flow with that, that's amazing. Not everyone is built like you, and that's okay. Some of us have to think our way through that shit. So I think some better advice other than like just feel your feelings might be to encourage people to come up with a strategy and ways to feel safe in their body to feel their feeling. Maybe it's better advice to take it a step at a time and just practice feeling safe with the feelings that you can feel in current day instead of trying to jump all the way back to the past right now if your body's resisting that. Maybe there's different advice that we can give people who are struggling to do this thing that maybe they know they need to do. But for whatever reason, they don't have the resources yet to feel safe to do that. Because the thing is this, coping mechanism, whatever, they're all designed to protect us. They're all designed to keep us from going over whatever edge we're afraid of going over. So telling people like, oh, you just got to feel your feelings, like that's kind of just shaming. And it's encouraging people to not trust that that coping mechanism is there for a reason. Maybe they're meant to intellectualize their way into feeling their feelings. Maybe their body needs that kind of support from them in order to open up. There's nothing wrong with using your brain to develop a relationship with your body that feels safe enough to lean into. Don't stop intellectualizing them, just channel it in that direction.
Does that resonate with anybody? Did anyone while watching that, like, yes, I feel that I can feel. So something that she said that I think is really important is that oftentimes, if again, I've found that a lot a lot of my clients who are in academia tend to be my intellectualizers, right? And again, this is, I don't know, there's probably some kind of correlation between people being super intelligent and then also having the ability that when feelings are too big or feelings don't feel safe because of whatever it is that people have experienced, that they found ways to deal with it in a way that is here but not here because that feels safer, right? And understanding that it's okay to deal with it here until we learn how to deal with it connected to both the body and the brain. And there is nothing wrong with intellectualizing how you're feeling. The key is just to try to bridge that connection, that in those little moments, asking your body, okay, well, what do you need in order to feel safe? You can feel some of this. Or where do you physically need to be? Maybe, at school with your counselor is not the place. Maybe at home with a friend might be a better place for you to feel safe enough to feel whatever it is that you're experiencing. Next slide, please, Dr. Adam. All right, we can skip through this one. So the path of healing, all of us we're talking about right now, feeling, deciding, managing. We can skip through this. So different signs, how do we even know that we're healing, right? Like, what does that even look like? Once we start doing these things of recognizing our triggers and then starting to handle our triggers differently, and what do we do? How do we know that we're healing? Well, oftentimes we can know when we become more observant, right? So the next time we get in the car with mom and she makes a comment, instead of reacting, we're observing, we're sitting back for a minute, and before responding, we're thinking, and then we're responding, but not from the same place of frustration or anger, but maybe just from a place of comedic relief, or even from just a place of not being bothered, right? I know Robin talked about this, be less judgmental of others. Oftentimes I have found that we are very judgmental with other people, and it's often because we're also judgmental with ourselves. The same voice that I use in my mind that tells me all the things I'm doing wrong, that is often the same voice that I'm using to judge all the people out here. And the more I heal this voice, and the more I'm compassionate and loving with myself, the less I find that I'm judgmental out here, if that makes sense. So also less reactivity, more boundaries, less feelings of resentment, right? Also having clarity. And all of this creates a situation where we're not feeling as much chaos inside, but also outside. And if we're not having chaos, then what is our life? Our life is more peaceful. We don't feel as afraid, and we feel so much more faith about, hopeful for our future and the person that we're trying to become. Next slide, please. So I kept this in from last year because I thought it was important. A huge part of how we heal is in community. And I think I gave this example last year as well, about the monk who goes to the mountains for 3 years to pray and meditate. But then he comes down the mountain after the 3rd year and he runs into his mother, and his mother says, "Oh my goodness, look how skinny you are." Right? And he's instantly triggered. As much as we think that we are quote unquote healing in isolation. That's not how it works. We actually don't heal as much as we think we do in isolation, because it is only through our social connections, our intimate partnerships with other people, that we truly know whether or not we are healing. Next slide, please. So rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Healing is an act of communion. Next one, please, Marceline. And just some ideas about how you can begin to build your own community. Thinking about, what do you like to do, putting yourself out there, put in the time, the effort, the consistency. For example, I don't know if what you guys are doing, I know I'm a little bit in the older age group here, but recently I found a platform that I really enjoy, actually meeting people. For example, if I could share with you guys, today I had a photo shoot and this lovely photographer came to my home, and I actually met her on Threads, right? So you'd be so surprised nowadays, back when I was younger, there weren't that many opportunities to meet people besides maybe at school, or like if you had a little summer job or something. But nowadays, you can meet people from all over the world. There's so many opportunities to meet incredible, amazing people. And building your community is literally, on your phone. It's so easy. The hard part is having the courage to put yourself out there. Next slide, please. Okay. And the other thing that's really helpful is finding a therapist, right? And I know that this part can be really hard, because finding a therapist is like dating. Let's just be honest, right? You don't always find the best fit the first time around. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 times before you find the right person. Don't give up. There is a therapist out there for you. And sometimes the best thing to do is just to call a friend, right? And say, hey, how do you like your therapist? Do you mind sharing your contact information or their contact information with me? And that's oftentimes a really great way also. Thank you guys so much. And I'm leaving this last portion. If you guys have any questions, if anything resonated with you, what do you guys want to spend this last little moment of talking about? Tell me.
Thank you, Dr. England. Before we jump into questions, would everyone please take a moment to complete a brief survey? Kayla's actually going to drop the link in the chat right now. Your feedback helps us know what kind of events you'd like to see more of, less of, anything else. Thank you.
Dr. England, is there anything different we should be doing during the holidays? Is this, like, when does your healing journey, begin? Does it, begin during this season, or is there a best time of year, the beginning of the year, or does that matter?
I always say, so I tell my clients all the time, the holidays are such a wonderful time to really test if you are learning and evolving, because there are so many wonderful opportunities to see how you handle triggers, right? Because you're with your family. And oftentimes our families are the ones like where all of this began. So as we're coming close to Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it is that you particularly celebrate, just the holidays in general, this is a wonderful time to see how much you're growing and how much you're evolving, right? And most of the time, we're not intentionally putting ourselves in situations that create internal chaos. However, just by the mere fact that we're with our families, this is happening. And taking these times as an opportunity to step outside of yourself and observe your reaction, observe the interaction between mom and dad, your auntie and your mom, and your cousins, and just really taking a step back and thinking about, what character am I in all of this, and what do I play, and what's the character that I would like to play, and how can you begin to embody that. And it's a lot of times it's little simple things. So for example, the other day I had a cousin in Thanksgiving, and love her to death, but she started to gossip about another cousin. Now, the old me would have just listened to the gossip. The me that I'm trying to become is, I said to her, you know, I hear what you're saying, and I understand completely how you feel. And I think we should also give this other cousin some grace. And then I lovingly changed the subject. Oh my goodness, tell me what you're cooking. Let me see it. So I validated how she was feeling, because I didn't want to shame her. I love her. She's my cousin. She just gossips, right? So I validated how she was feeling. And then I lovingly brought up something else, because again, this isn't about her. This is about me. And I'm trying to have different interactions with the people that I love. And I no longer want to be a part of any gossiping about anybody, even if it's something simple like, oh, did you see what he wore? I don't care what he wore. Like, or did you see his hair? I don't care. But again, I don't want to invalidate my other cousin's experience. I can say, I hear you, cuz. Oh my goodness, did you see that food? That was amazing. Auntie really made that macaroni and cheese, was delicious this year. So what are you doing this weekend? And we changed the subject.
Pivot.
Have any of you guys had opportunities during Thanksgiving did you do some of this stuff without even realizing that you were doing it? Anybody want to share?
I think what Robin said is important about pivoting.
Of the pivot. I love it. Changing the subject. I mean, I hear you. Yeah. But oh my God, are you going to go to that thing on Friday? Like just changing the subject. I do it all the time because I don't really want to gossip. It doesn't even feel good.
But that's exactly it, Robin, right? Is you know that you're healing when things that normally had no charge to it become charged.
Yeah.
So when you start to feel that,
yeah,
and you don't want to engage,
I'll be
that's a good sign. Like, oh my goodness, look at me.
Mhm.
I'm healing, because now this gossip doesn't even feel good anymore. There's nothing. It actually feels yucky. I don't like this person that I am when I do this thing, right? And even that is paying attention, in tune with your own discernment of like the person that you're trying to step into. Oh, look at me. I am changing, because these things no longer, they don't even feel good to my spirit.
Yeah.
And that's a great indicator.
That's great. I love that.
Anybody else want to share anything? Ask any questions?
I just think that